Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first of our Zaglife 101 webinar series. This is the first time that we've done something like this. It's a student-led initiative from Parent and Family Relations, so we're really excited to start. Zoom is having some technical difficulties currently, so you won't be able to see us, but we're going to put up the PowerPoint that our speakers today have brought on screen share, and that'll be our backdrop for today. My name is CJ Castillo. I'm one of the students leading the initiative.
And I'm Alex Campbell. I'm another student. I'm working with CJ on our project today.
And our speakers today are from Financial Aid and Students Accounts. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Samantha Scott, and I work in the Student Accounts Office and part of the Student Financial Services Division.
And I'm Anna Harkins, and I mainly work in financial aid as well as the whole division, Student Financial Services. Sam and I will represent together today. So, yeah.
Awesome. And with that, we're going to go straight into our presentation.
And get started.
Yes, please note if you have any questions throughout. There is a chat function in Zoom meeting, so we'll have a little time for questions at the end. All right.
Well, great. We're part of, like I mentioned, a division. So we actually encompass a handful of offices. So it's easier to say Student Financial Services, and we're the money people. But we primarily work with Campus Card. So your students' portal for everything here on campus, their Zag Card, is run through our office, Campus Card Services, as well as Student Accounts, my area. So we work with billing and payment. We'll give a little more of an overview, but just listing off the offices.
Yep, and then financial aid, so basically how you can pay for school, multiple options there. And last but certainly not least, student employment, which is becoming a huge part of the student life here on Gonzaga's campus. And so, yeah, all four of those encompass student financial services in lower level Crosby, 001. So
the basement of Crosby, Low Crow, come and see us. We're in one house, and we have wonderful people to greet you with any questions you might have. Your student for sure does not need an appointment. Just stop in. We're open 8:30 to 4:30, and we can help you. We have more than enough people to try to help you out.
Yes.
So we're very doors open policy. If you have questions, your student asks questions, you can call, email, stop by. We love seeing our students, especially being in a basement. It helps us.
Yeah, and no
have a
appointments
connection.
necessary.
So let's dive in. I'm going to start with Campus Card Services. Very important office because they produce what is the portal to everything in your student's wallet. The Zag Card is our official Gonzaga University ID. It identifies students as a member of the Gonzaga community, and it is used for various purposes across campus. Most importantly, how they eat. So if your student will have a meal plan or have Bulldog Bucks here on campus, they will use their Zag Card to access the food here on campus, as well as the various vendors off campus that allow or accept Bulldog Bucks. The meal plans that are part of your student account are provided two different ways. One is a community plan that is provided by Zag Dining. It's considered an off-campus plan for those students that are not required to have a meal plan. They still use your Zag Card to provide that service. What we help with billing is the on-campus resident plan. Same thing, it's still on your Zag Card. Your student will use that to swipe into the dining halls physically here on campus. So that is the meal plan component. The other half of the meal plan, or a portion of the meal plan, is a stored value account called Bulldog Bucks. Those are available funds that they can use at participating locations. We have a ton here on campus, and then we have way more off campus in a walking distance. So it's a wonderful feature that we have here on campus, and we have wonderful colleagues that maintain that program, and we're adding new restaurants all the time. So the Zag Card, in addition to the meal plan and the Bulldog Bucks, provides you physical door access. So a lot of buildings are upgraded these days to not accepting physical keys. You actually use the Zag Card to access the residence hall, the library, the fitness center, any athletic events. They swipe your card into the building or into the event itself. Printing. And the most wonderful newer feature is the ability to ride the Spokane Transit here in town. So you can use your Zag Card to get onto the buses. That's part of your tuition here at the university. The residence halls, the ZAG card grants you access to the exterior doors to the building. There are, in some iterations, there's actually a key that they'll provide you with as well, but not in all buildings. So there's certainly the most important, especially if you're living here on campus, because you can't eat, you can't get into your room without it. So with that in mind, I know that a lot of students have been sending in their photos for ID cards. I would definitely make sure your student is aware that there is a deadline. As an incoming student, we have August 2nd as the deadline to submit your photo. So just make sure, be mindful of that time frame, and make sure they follow those instructions on Zag Web, where they can upload their photo. And then in terms of picking up your card, so for the fall semester, we have a wonderful weekend, about a month and a half away, orientation. So you're picking up your ZAG card. This is kind of the first time we're meeting a lot of people face-to-face. So we actually require that all students have a valid government-issued ID card. So it cannot be a temporary and expired, any sort of voided, or any image on your phone, anything like that. We need a physical, hard, government-issued ID, like a passport, a driver's license, that has to be a current ID to provide as proof that you are who you say you are. So please make sure that if your student has one that's expiring soon, that they get that sorted out and make sure they have that in hand when they come to pick up their ID card during orientation. So there's a lot of wonderful features that I just barely touched on. One of the most important security-wise one is the ability to freeze your card and unfreeze your card. Some students unfortunately lose their card, just the way that life goes. There is a functionality in ZagWeb where you can actually freeze your card if there's a chance that maybe it's in your room and you just don't know where you put it. The ability to freeze it, or if God forbid you have it in a friend's room, if you have a chance that you don't know where it is but you think you might, you can freeze and unfreeze the card on ZagWeb. So it gives you a little bit more time, but more importantly, it means no one else would have access to your funds or be able to swipe into buildings on your behalf. But please visit our website. We have a ZAG card campus card services page at gonzaga.edu/ZAG card. It has a wealth of information about, especially uploading your photo, what areas or what locations they can use the Bulldog Bucks at, as well as the meal plan. So take a look at that site. I am Samantha, so this is who's still talking. I work in the student accounts office. I've been in this department for 10 years, actually. And as a student, I can tell you student accounts is a little bit scary because it deals with money. And as students, you don't necessarily want to talk about it, but we are very accommodating in the sense that our door is always open. We primarily work with parents these days, but we for sure would like to get an open conversation with everybody involved, because billing is done electronically. All the correspondence comes to the student. If anyone else specifically needs to be a part of that process, we ask that as early as April, or when you first got admitted to the university, that we have you set up an authorized payer account that grants access to anyone else that needs to be making payments or have access to your bills on CashNet. We ask that that is set up by the student. Now that we're going to be billing for the fall semester for those students that are not on a payment plan, we ask that you still set that up if it hasn't happened yet. Have your student log into ZagWeb, go to the electronic billing information, and go into CashNet to set up an authorized payer account. Without that, your student is the only one who's getting access or will have the email notification sent out. Another wonderful feature of CashNet is we have the ability to send text messages if email is just very outdated. You can have the students set themselves up with text messages so they get billing notifications. They can also opt in for their authorized payer. So if the payer and the student don't want to get an email, you're still going to get an email, but you can actually opt in to have text messages sent. So you'll always be in the know. I had mentioned CashNet. CashNet is our e-commerce site here at Gonzaga. We use it across campus. We use it in the student accounts office for billing, for tuition, fees, and room and board. So that is where we present our bills for each semester or for monthly payments. And then that is also where we take payments. And you'll see CashNet come up a lot across campus for different departments that take payments for clubs and like kennel club fees and everything. We have CashNet everywhere. So CashNet is all-encompassing e-commerce here at Gonzaga. You can pay through the student account side using a debit, credit card, or directly from your checking or your savings account. If you pay with a debit or a credit card, a physical card, they ding you a service fee. It's a 2.75% service fee. that you can avoid if you pay directly from your checking or your savings account. The roundabout way is you just have to know your bank account number and the routing number. So be mindful of that. You can still mail in a physical check. We don't mandate that anyone pays through CashNet, but the bills are the only thing that we require you to view on CashNet. And then as always, make sure you get the authorized payers set up as early as you can. So we're on the precipice of billing for fall. It's happening within the next week. Anybody that's set up as an authorized payer and all of our students that are registered for fall are going to get that email. So brace yourselves. The fall bills will actually be due by August 2nd. Payment in full or a payment arrangement is due by August 2nd. We have a various option on the billing statement, so you can actually defer at no additional cost. It would get your deadline out until August 30th. You just have to return that deferment to us by August 2nd. Or you can set up a monthly payment plan, or if you just need to talk about a special circumstance, obviously you should reach out to us by August 2nd. And that also happens to be the same date to upload the picture for the ZAG card. So August 2nd is a big day around our office. And then similar setup in the spring. We'll bill towards the beginning of December. Those spring bills will be available on CashNet. Your student will automatically get an email, and any authorized payer accounts will receive emails or text messages as well. And that balance would be due by January 2nd, or a payment arrangement by January 2nd. Outside of that, our office predominantly works with student refunds, any sort of excess funding related to financial aid, or if there is any sort of dropped course fees or anything that we would need to refund a student. We offer paper checks, but we also offer an electronic direct deposit program called e-refund. So in any instance where your student would have any sort of a refund issued to them from the university, we request that they actually go into CashNet and enroll in that e-refund program. There's no fee to enroll in that program. They do need to have a U.S. bank account to link to make sure that the funds are actually going to a U.S. Domestic bank account. But other than that, it's no fee. It'll be transferred to them within 2 to 4 business days, and it's a lot more convenient than the paper checks. So for sure, make sure if your student is on a scholarship or receiving any sort of a refund that they check out the e-refund option. And beside that, we work very closely with our friends over in financial aid. So I'll pass the torch over to Anna. She'll give a little brief overview.
Yeah, so good job, Sam. That's a lot of really important information for students and parents incoming and returning. So yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, sounds like we're a huge division. So financial aid, I do want to state too, financial aid, we have on-duty counselors 8:30 to 4:30. So really there's no appointment necessary. You can always call or email or stop in, and we're happy to get you to a counselor right away. We kind of pride ourselves in that, just being readily available for our students and parents and visitors. So it's just a huge asset to us. But financially, what that looks like for a student is, when you're admitted, you receive a merit scholarship. All students receive that. And then from there, a lot of it depends on the FAFSA. But some other types of aid included are, scholarships, both merit from GU as well as outside scholarships, grants, that can be from the FAFSA or a GU grant, loans. We have federal loans. Some folks use, private loans, Parent Plus loan, employment, student employment, which I will touch on a little bit later, but that does kind of fall underneath financial aid, or a combo, which is the most common. A lot of students, utilize both a scholarship and a grant from GU, and then they have to use a little bit of a federal loan to finish off what they owe for tuition. So the main parts of financial aid that I wanted to touch on today are just some general requirements, and those are things that are needing to be done right now. And so I think it would be pretty important to just talk about, and just starting with the FAFSA. You file the FAFSA to apply for financial aid at Gonzaga. That's the only thing we need is the FAFSA. We don't need any additional documentation. I know some other students or some other schools do, but just the FAFSA for Gonzaga. And we use that FAFSA to determine aid eligibility for all federal, state, and need-based institutional aid. So it's pretty important. A couple things about the FAFSA is we highly recommend trying to use the data retrieval tool on that. That just smooths the process over a lot if you're able to use that, and all the numbers come in correctly from the IRS. So, but we do have ways around that as well, which you can always call if you have questions. So the FAFSA, the priority deadline for Gonzaga is October 1st to February 1st. So that priority deadline is over for 2019-2020, but it is never late to fill out the FAFSA, and we can get you, if you're a grad student or anything like that, you can fill out the FAFSA and we get you a package within the next couple of days after we receive it. And so just making sure that you have that on file. A lot of the counselors, tell me to tell students to recommend like filling out that FAFSA during Christmas break when you go home. That's the best time because you're with your parents and you can just do it all together. So a few other requirements for our office that I want to highlight is just making sure that right now you're going into ZagWeb and you're looking at your financial aid tab and you're accepting or declining those financial aid awards. Most of the time that's loans or federal work study that are still in the offered status. We've probably sent you some emails if you haven't already, so it's important to accept or decline those. A good thing to note though, if you do decline your loan and then you end up, a week before school, something happens financially, you can come to us and we can reinstate that loan and you can accept that, and that can go towards your tuition bill.
Because you were offered that for the year, so you still
Right.
have it available to you. Even if you decline it, we can still reinstate it and get it back to you during that academic year.
Right, which is awesome. So, and that's just another great thing too. With sitting here with Sam, like we're all in the same office.
Yeah.
So if you have an issue with paying your bill via student accounts, well, come to the same office because financial aid's there as well. Talk to us.
You can have
Visit
some
with Sam.
resources, available to help you.
Exactly.
Your family, your student, and that's the general message is we have an open door. I know it's scary, money's scary, but
Right.
we love to have the conversation now so that your student feels empowered, especially over the 4 years. They understand the process. They understand where the fees, where everything's coming from and how it works, so that when they leave, they are successful in their own financial future as well. So,
And student accounts isn't as scary because you have the same person all 4 years.
Yeah.
So you kind of establish that relationship with that person and it becomes
we get
breeze.
to know. We get to know you.
Yeah, exactly. So you become friends. But so just highlighting those unsatisfied tracking requirements that you'll see in ZagWeb for academic year 1920, because those will prevent, if you have any federal funding, those will prevent it from dispersing onto your account, and then that can cause some issues with student accounts in essence. So it's just good to be aware of those right now. So, and if you are borrowing for the first time as a freshman and you're going to accept one of your federal unsubsidized or subsidized loans, I wanted to give you a little heads up. It's in your requirements, but it can be a little confusing. So there's 2 requirements called loan entrance counseling and a loan agreement or a master promissory note. Those words or those names are interchangeable. Those 2 bullet points, those need to be completed on studentloans.gov. And you would go to that website, sign in with your FAFSA username and password, and you can complete those right underneath undergraduate students. It's pretty straightforward. The first 2 bullets I just checked. So yeah, I would just take a look at those on your requirements. So,
And as a first-time borrower, it's only required your first time.
Right.
So after that, I think you're covered for 10 years
yeah,
with
it's a while.
those agreements. So if you're continuing on to graduate school, if you're borrowing federal and subsidized loan as a grad student, you would not need to complete the master promissory note again. You're covered within that agreement, as well as the entrance counseling component for 10 years. So.
Correct. Yeah, I just did that. So yeah. Yep. So anyways, student employment, all of our counselors, our financial aid counselors, can talk to you about student employment. So if you have a question, come on down. If our front desk staff can't help you, you'll just see a financial aid counselor, and they're all well versed in just the processes and what the opportunities look like on campus. But the cool thing is, student employment here at Gonzaga, we have students that work on and off campus. We have non-work study positions, or we have federal and Washington State work study positions. And when I mentioned federal work or Washington State work study, that is from the FAFSA. So based on your FAFSA eligibility, you can be awarded a work study program. And if you're from Washington, you'll be awarded that after your freshman year. And we can dive into the details more if you have questions later on here. But it's a lot of it is FAFSA related or depends on your FAFSA. So work study eligibility is found on ZagWeb under your financial aid award in your financial aid award, which you accept or decline. So our online job board, which is where you would go to look for any jobs, is called Handshake. You can find more information about Handshake on our Student Financial Services website, but I have before just Googled Handshake Gonzaga, and it was one of the first links that comes up, but to be safe, you can always go onto our website and find the link there. You can start looking for all jobs, so both non-work study and work study jobs on Handshake starting here in the next week or two. So that's pretty exciting. We do highlight one really important detail here. So initial hiring paperwork. If you have not worked on campus before, attention freshmen, first years, we do need some original documentation when you fill out your initial hiring paperwork. So this original documentation is something like a passport, a social security card, or a birth certificate, in-person original document. That's very important. And you have to have that original documentation on file within the first 3 days of you working. So it's just vital to us. And if we can tell you ahead of time to bring one of those documents, can probably save some, money going in the mail. And it is pretty taken seriously. So important to include. But student employment is awesome. I was a student employee. Many of us in this room have been student employees, and it's just, there's a lot of benefits. It holds you accountable. You might have less debt. You can use that work study money towards your student account to help pay off your tuition, or you can put it personally towards your own banking, so you have your own money to spend instead of asking mom and dad or taking out more loans. It just makes you more flexible. It helps you network. My student employment job helped me get the job I have today in student financial services. So I wanted to speak for that, and just gives you that experience. You might just be working at the front desk answering a phone, but getting used to that is huge in the long run. And you start to learn more about yourself, and I don't know, it's a great asset to a student, as well as it can help you financially. So
yeah, obviously a great asset to the university, having
Right.
student workers, that camaraderie, and especially that networking. You get to learn more about the university as a whole, being in the trenches, so to speak. You get to know where the other offices are, how the whole university works for the departments you may never even talk to, but more importantly, it gives you that overarching feeling of connectivity to the university, because you're helping to make the university work. So it's kind of an awesome experience to take a part of.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it definitely, and it builds your resume 100%. You just
You
gain a
can
lot.
test to that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it's a lot of information we just threw at you, but we
Thank you
have
so
4
much.
unique offices in our division, but we are so darn close. We work seamlessly with each other. So we know, and we can help, and we're willing to collaborate, especially if you have any questions about anything. Yeah.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Speaking of questions,
If
if
So-
you have any,
If you have any, there's a chat section. I'm talking to the families now. There's a chat section, I believe, on the left of your screen. If you have any questions, you can type them in down there, and your screen might get a little funky for a minute.
looks like we got one.
Let's see. So these webinars, I guess this question's for us. One moment.
The question is, how often are these webinars? These webinars are going to be weekly for the rest of the summer until orientation.
So
At
they'll
this
be-
time.
Yep, they'll be every Wednesday at 4:00. We'll be sending out the links to those every week as well, and posting about them. And they'll be on different offices. Next week, I believe we have
Next week's office
is Office of Health Promotion and Career Personalis. So that's basically our counseling on campus, but we'll get to that next week. So if anyone has any questions for our lovely ladies before we let them go off, we have a couple if no one else does. It's totally fine.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, hi.
Hi, this is Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for having these. These are very helpful. I have a quick question on Where do I go again to do the Parent Plus loan? Is it just studentgov.org or studentloans.gov?
Yes, that's correct. And you'll see there's a parent borrower tab where you can click in and it'll ask you to log in to view your information as well as apply for a Parent Plus loan.
Okay, so studentloan.gov.
Student loans with an S, studentloans.gov.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry, I could barely hear you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then we have a few questions from the student perspective. The first question is, can I get more financial aid throughout the year?
Depends. I mean, if you didn't apply for the FAFSA, for sure, that would be a easy way to see if you're eligible for additional funding, especially if you have
if you have
need.
if you have a financial circumstance that happens in your family, it can be very personal to a death in the family or loss of income or reduction in wages, your parents or anything like that. You can file a special conditions appeal. So I would recommend calling our office or stopping in first and speaking to a counselor about it. But we do have the form. It's online on our website that you would just. Yeah, it's so you would go to our financial aid. If you just Google financial aid Gonzaga, the first link right there, I do it daily. And you go to the tools and resources tab on the right hand side, and the special conditions appeal form is there. You would fill that out and just basically explain your financial situation. The FAFSA this year, 1920, it's taking from the 2017 year. And so a family, if there was something that happened in 2018, that's not being reported on the FAFSA. So that's not being shown. So that's why we had that special conditions appeal process. And I've had actually the opportunity to work through a lot of those this year and accept all the documentation for families and then push it to our counselor committee. And so it's just been huge. And the amount of appreciation families have for that is really cool. So yeah, if you need more financial aid, talk to us and we can work something out. But yeah, that's a really cool process. I think that's unique.
Well, and in tying with that, something unique that we offer through the university, some of you may have already taken advantage of, is our monthly payment plan. We offer an interest-free payment plan for the entire academic year. The 10-month arrangement started in July, on July 1st. But we do still offer an 8-month plan, which is taking your fall charges as well as your spring charges, divided equally over 8 payments. There's an application fee, but it is an interest-free option to split the balance equally and make those payments a little bit smaller, especially if you have expenses you're not anticipating and you need a little bit more time to make the payment. There's no fee to pay the balance off in full if you decide halfway through you don't want to do it anymore. So it gives you a little bit more time to kind of coordinate your finances, especially this first year. If maybe you want to do the payment plan this year, you're not locked in all 4 years on a payment plan. We look at it that's a wonderful resource. If halfway through the year you're looking for some help, we can help split up, especially your spring balance equally over a couple payments too, if you need a little bit more time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We have a question that came in through the chat from Jennifer. She asked, how do you apply for the FAFSA to the student's monthly payment? How do you apply the FAFSA to the student's monthly payment?
So in terms of the payment plan, you actually have to apply to sign up for the monthly installment plan. On the application, we ask you to list what awards you currently have. If you don't have any information on there about the FAFSA, we're going to generate the arrangement based on what you currently have accepted on the award. If your student, after we generated the arrangement, if they went in and accepted new awards, or if there's new information that was not on the original agreement, if you just email us, give us a call, we're happy to revise the arrangement to incorporate the FAFSA awards. The one thing that we cannot include into the installment plan is the federal work study or the state work study. Your student actually gets a physical paycheck or a direct deposit every time they get paid from the work study job. What they can do is they can sign over their entire paycheck from the federal work study position. They can sign that over to their student account. So every payday, they would have that helping to contribute to the monthly payment plan. But we don't factor that into your monthly arrangement. So it would be your student's responsibility to get their paycheck and just make a payment on their student account every month. So it's kind of teaching that responsibility to budget as well if they're supposed to be contributing a set amount each month. But outside of that, any other awards, awarded to you from the FAFSA. If it wasn't on there when we set up the payment plan, we just need to know once it's awarded, we can revise the arrangement, make sure we get all of those awards factored in.
Okay, and then we have some more questions that we planned out. One question that a lot of students have is, how do holds work?
So holds actually are centered around registration and transcripts and diplomas. They affect the ability to get any of 3 of those items based on outstanding requirements to a litany of different departments around campus. We seem to be the most popular ones, student accounts, related to billing. I mean, anytime a student registers for a class, anytime they add housing, have any damages to their housing, any student conduct fines, any health center fees that they don't pay for at the time of the visit, they can elect to have those all hit their student account. When we get those fees added to their account, we send a monthly bill after the beginning of the semester. We send a generic monthly bill that, hey, here's all the fees that you currently owe. And if the student doesn't pay the balance by the specific deadline, we send one more billing statement. There's a rebilling fee tacked on for the rebilling process. And after that second bill, if they still haven't paid, then a hold goes on. It's basically preventing them from registering until that account balance is resolved. So moving forward, it's in your student's best interest, if they are not the ones paying the bill, to either notify you of any miscellaneous fees that might be coming up, especially if they went to the health center. Hey, mom, dad, I went to the health center yesterday. There's a $500 charge coming your way. Just to have that transparency that, hey, there's going to be a bill. We get a lot of parents that, I already paid for the semester, why am I getting a bill? Some people just ignore it thinking that they don't know anything, but more than likely your student knows exactly why there's a bill on their account. So the holds are only generated when there is a past due balance. And then occasionally we have return checks and different things that until those are resolved, there's a hold just in place, just so we make you guys aware that there is something that needs to be resolved, and it just prevents you from registering for a future semester when there's still a balance owing on this current semester. So it's very important during registration time to just make sure that you guys are checking on their account. If there's any outstanding fees, that we either have a payment arrangement on file to have those split up over a couple of payments, and have the accounts resolved in full to make sure they don't have any issues during registration.
The last question we have for you is, how do I, as a student, go about finding scholarships for GU?
We have an outside scholarship database. If you just go to our financial aid page, on the right-hand side, I believe, is an outside scholarship database. And you just go there and there's tons. We also have resources in person. So if you have money left to pay off, come and visit us, and a counselor can set you up with a lot of sources to apply for these outside scholarships too. Most of the time you can use, the same essay, but just change it a little bit or nothing at all, and whatever makes you unique and apply to as many as you think you qualify for. So yes, we have an outside scholarship database on our website as well as in person.
Well, and another wonderful thing that a lot of families, they do a lot of local scholarships, like in their community, they do the Rotary Club and different resources like that, but also major companies. Like think of car dealers, car manufacturers like Ford. Ford Scholars, I know, is a big program. Coca-Cola, Taco Bell has one. I mean, think of like major companies. If you actually do like a Google search for that company and scholarships, you'd be amazed how many opportunities there are out there. And all it takes is a little bit of essay work, and you can get tons of things. It would be in your students' best interest, maybe over like Thanksgiving or Christmas when they have a little bit of time, maybe pump out a couple essays. Especially for this year. I mean, I know there's probably a bunch of scholarships that are available, but it doesn't hurt to start applying early for next year. So especially over fall, if there's any time where they can potentially apply for additional scholarships, make sure they take advantage of that.
Money that can just be put on the student account whenever,
Less
and it'll be
you
credit.
have to borrow. And
Exactly.
There's just so many.
Even if you're a senior, like going into your senior year, if you need that help, you should gladly talk to us.
One word of caution though, don't trust any website that makes you pay to apply for a scholarship, because those are not for you.
Not it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for coming and helping us today answer some questions. For anyone who wanted to re-watch this webinar or refer someone else to it in the next 48 hours, this will be posted to the Parent and Family Facebook, so you can go check it out there. If there are no more questions, then we're going to be signing off, and you'll catch us here again next Wednesday. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.